whatever it is where you're at. This week's double Torah reading, we have the Parsha Bechukotai. The Torah says, "In Bechukotai telechu, ves mitzvosai tishmuru lasos osam." So the Torah divides itself, so to speak, into the two categories that we are accustomed to think of when it comes to mitzvot. There are mitzvot that are chukim, in Bechukotai telechu, and the usual understanding of chukim is that it's a law or a decree for which we really have no logical explanation. Then there are mishpatim, mitzvot that are mishpatim, that those are laws that we understand. So we understand human nature is to understand and not to take someone else's property, not to be a false person, not to abuse an oath that's taken. Even we understand not to desire things that are not ours. And we could also say that we understand that there should be one day a week that we should rest. Those are all matters of human logic that we somehow have a grip upon them. So even though things that we think we understand, we really don't understand. The Rashba says, Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet, in one of his famous Shuvot says, Tachlit hayediah sheneda shelo neda. And the ultimate knowledge is to know that we don't know. So even though we pride ourselves on knowing and on understanding and on human logic and rationality, but we have to admit that at the end of the day, it's a pretty irrational world, as current events indicate. It's not easy for us to understand what happens. And it's not easy for us to understand the Torah. Nevertheless, there are such things that are mishpatim, that are mitzvot, that, so to speak, we have a grasp upon them. But then there are laws, decrees, minutiae, if you wish, that are chukim. Why? What? Where? What? And what does it do? In my many years of being a rabbi, I have been often taught by people that one of the questions that abounds is, does God really care? Does he care whether I waited 6 hours to eat? Does he really care whether I strap on a black box? Does he really care whether I light candles Friday night? I mean, is that what God cares about? And I imagine that if you phrase it that way, so then it sounds pretty strange that we should care about it. So anyway, the minutiae of the Mishnah Berurah, I mean, what difference does it make in the overall scheme of things? So I've grappled with this problem. I'm sure all of you have. It's a basic problem of faith, especially in our faith, which is Torah Judaism, which is built pretty much on chukim. is pretty much based on the small things, but not the grand picture often doesn't appear. So I've had an insight on this now in the past month, maybe more than a month already, that I'm at the home of my children. Uh, so since I don't read well anymore, but there's something that's called audible books. People read the book for you. Amazon has it, Google has it, there are all sorts of companies that have it. And so I avail myself of that. And since my teenage years, I've been a Civil War buff. I've found the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, be perhaps the most fascinating conflict recorded in modern times, relatively modern times. And the amount of blood that was spilled, talking about 600,000 dead. America has never had that in any of its wars combined. So I'm listening to this 3-volume work on the American Civil War, which is full of detail. Because otherwise, how do you fill up 3 volumes? And all of us authors know that books have to have heft to them. So you need a lot of words. And I gained an insight that I want to share with you that I think is shot in the puzzle. In an army, in a great army, an army of millions, there are generals. There's the general staff. The general staff plans the war. Now, the war never follows the plan, but nevertheless, you have to have a plan. It's what's called strategic thinking. And the strategic thinking governs movements of armies, disposition of forces, the mobilization of resources. All of this is based upon strategic thinking. That's the job of the generals. Then below them are another set or layer of officers who take this strategic thinking and translate it into tactical behavior. The strategic thinking is that we're going to overwhelm the enemy by outflanking them. Okay, now the next level, how do we outflank them? Then there's another level that says we outflank them by putting our troops to the right of the enemy. We have to move them. It's logistics. And then from those logistics, we go down to regiments, to battalions, the companies, down to the individual soldier. The individual soldier, let's say, is a private in the army. And his corporal tells him, you know, Yankel, you line up here. This is where you have to be. This is where you have to fight. This is your task. He's unaware of the grand strategy, completely unaware of what the generals have thought of. He only knows his position. Nevertheless, in order for the grand strategy to be effective, the uncle has to do his job. Because when push comes to shove, it's up to the uncle. If he picks up and runs away, and enough of them do so, then the greatest grand strategy in the world will not accomplish anything. If he stands firm and he does his job, even if he doesn't understand anything about grand strategy, then the grand strategy can work. And then the plan that was devised will somehow be able to be transformed into action. When the Torah tells us in Bechukotai telechu, there is a grand strategy. We are not privy to that grand strategy. We're the private in our own little foxhole. We have our little job. So our little job is, how do I clean my gun? How do I sight my weapon to be more effective? Those are all minutiae. And the general is not really interested in that. But if that is not present, then the grand strategy cannot work. So that, in effect, strategy, as important as it is, and it is dependent on individual behavior. And the individual's behavior many times is only subject to orders that that individual was given, for which he has no explanation and for which he has no understanding, except that he's supposed to be here and to fire there, and that it all depends upon him. And that's the idea of chukim. Bechukotai telechu is our belief in a grand strategy. There's a great strategy here. I don't know it. I never went to military school. I never studied Napoleon. There's a great strategy here somewhere. But, and this is very important, I have to do my job. That much I do know. And I do know that somehow my being in this place at this time, in these tactical lines, so to speak, is important to the great strategy. And the Torah calls that chukim. Chok. And because it's a chok, I have to fulfill it, even though I don't understand it, even though it may not seem to me to have any logic to it. Now the Torah says here, "In Bechukotai telechu," if you go in my chukim. Why does it say telechu? What does it mean, go? It should say, just like it said by mitzvos, tishmeru, you guard them, you observe them. In fact, what makes it even more piquant, the question, is Rashi says, Rashi quotes here the Torah's Kohanim, Shetiyu amelim b'Torah, that you should be people who toil in Torah, work at Torah. Omel. Rabbi said, Odom la'omo yulod. We are born for toil. The Gemara says, Ashrei mi shamolo b'Torah. Happy, fortunate is the person that toils in Torah, meaning that has a purpose for his toil. The Gemara teaches us that in Egypt, in Mitzrayim, when it says Vayavidu as Bnei Yisrael beforech, so what was beforech? What's the hard? What's the push-up shot? Is the hard work? You have to schlep 100-pound stone. But beforech, one of the interpretations is that everybody did work that they were not fit for. They had the electricians be plumbers. They had the plumbers be bricklayers, so that nobody had any satisfaction out of the job that they were doing. And there's nothing more frustrating in life than having to work and having to toil, but they have no satisfaction from what one is doing. Not to feel any self-fulfillment, not to feel that somehow something was accomplished. So, because of that, the Torah said, the Torah's Kohanim says, Shetiyu amelim b'Torah. If you toil in Torah, you will always have a self-satisfaction. If that's how you feel about it. This example often about Chanoch, that the Gemara says that Chanoch was a shoemaker. Tofer Manolimoya. Kol Tfiro Yomiyachin Yichudim LaKodesh Baruch. In every stitch, he sang God's praises. So singing God's praises doesn't mean that he sat in the back and he said Tehillim. Yisrael Salanter says God's praises is that he made good shoes. He gave the customer their money's worth. He had self-satisfaction from that. That's called Amelim Batorah. Amelim Batorah is not only to be understood in its smallest literal sense, to work to understand the Gemara or to understand what Tesis Kashi is. That's Amelim Batorah, yes. But Shetiyu Amelim, you should work and toil and always feel that it's Torah. Whatever you do has a purpose. Whatever you do is positive. Whatever you do helps. That's called Amelim Batorah. And so that brings us to our idea of Chukim. Chukim are the fulfillment of the grand strategy. So even if I don't understand it, and even if somehow it doesn't speak to me at this instant, but I'm part of a grand thing. I have to do my job. I'm the private and the foxhole. Without it, the general is useless. And therefore, to the question, does God really care? Sure he cares. Because the grand strategy cannot happen without the individual amelus, without the individual toil. And that's what Chukim come to teach us. And that's why it says Telechu, because it's a view of life. You got to go down that highway. You have to follow it. In our world, we have such a good example of this with this application that we call Waze. So a person gets in the one's automobile and dials in the address that he wants to go to. So let's say he wants to go to Tel Aviv. And he knows how to go to Tel Aviv. You go to the entrance here in Yerushalayim, and you get on Highway 1 and keep on going. But if he dials Waze, Waze may tell him, doesn't tell him to go on Highway 1. May tell him to go on 443. It may tell him to go on a different road completely. And the interesting is that we are like lemmings. We follow it. What do I need you for, Waze? I know how to get there. But Waze knows things that I don't know. It knows that Highway 1 is blocked 20 kilometers before Tel Aviv, and I'll never get there. and therefore it sends me a different way. That's in Bechukotai telechu. God says, I gave you a highway, I gave you a road, I gave you ways. You listen to me, I'll get you there. Now, you may not understand why, and you may think that you have a better way, but usually at the end of the day, you're foolish if you don't follow ways. Well, you're certainly foolish if you don't follow chukim. If you're not willing to, so to speak, subscribe to that application. And that's why it's called telechu. We have the Novi says, Ki yishorim darchei Hashem. The ways of God are straight. Vitzadikim yelchu bo. And the righteous go thereupon. And nevertheless, uposhim yikoshlu bo. People who are sinners, they will fall and trip on the road. So, Yishorim darchei Hashem. God's way is straight. They'll get you there. I mean, maybe it's not the way you originally thought you wanted to go. Maybe it's not the easiest road. It certainly is not the most popular road. But Yishorim, it's straight. Yishorim darchei Hashem. And the proof of the matter is, v'tzadikim yelchu bo. The righteous for millennia have walked upon that road and followed that path. And they have survived. Everybody that took a different path throughout Jewish history, it's really remarkable. Because whenever the famous philosopher Yogi Berra said, when there's a fork in the road, take it. Anytime there was a possible fork in the road, tragically, there were many, many Jews who took the wrong direction. They went on the wrong road. And the road eventually leads literally to a dead end. We are witness in our time how all of the ideologies of the 19th and 20th century lie in shambles. They're not here anymore. The Darchei Hashem somehow is always here, because there are always people that walk upon it. There are always people who follow it. One of the tactics in war always was to take the road signs and reverse them or change them so that an enemy that was unaware of the true topography of the country, so if it would say Yerushalayim to the right, so they turned the sign to say Yerushalayim to the left, and then they would wander off into nowhere. That's the idea of Poshim Yikoshlu. People that fell off the road, went the wrong way. And we all know, my friends, if you're on a superhighway and you miss the turnoff, you miss the exit you want, many times you can go for another 10, 15 minutes before you even have an opportunity to get off the road, reverse the direction, and try and get back. Well, if that's true at an individual level, as it is for people driving an automobile, imagine an entire nation. Imagine millions of people. They missed it. The Haftorah that we read last week, Kohanim Alavim B'nei Tzodok, Asher Shomru Es Mishmarti, B'ta'os b'nei Yisrael me'olai. The Jewish people took a wrong turn. They made a mistake. But it's not easy to get back on the road again. It's not easy to turn around. It takes time. Many times it takes generations. And it takes outside factors to influence it. As we will see, I hope, in Mirat Hashem, that things will come to a state where we can all gather together, at least. I don't know what's going to be, and neither do you, but we'll have to do our best. We'll have to have guideposts. We have to know what to do. And we have no explanation. So that's Bechukotai. You'll have to go by Chukim. But we have the added assurance that Tzadikim Yelchabam, that it's happened before, the righteous survive against all odds. A grandchild of mine called me, and he said that because stuck at home, can't go to work, etc. So he listened to all 111 history tapes of mine, which is cruel and unusual punishment. And he said he comes from it. He said, "What a terrible history we have had. How could all of these things have happened to us?" And I told him, everything that you say is true. And in fact, I never tried to paper over the troubles and mistakes of the Jewish people. But I said, nobody made 111 tapes, about the Romans or the Greeks or anybody else that we've encountered along the way. They're all history. This is not history. You're talking about your life, a different level completely. That's what you should concentrate on. That's what you should think about. That's the idea of chukim. Bechukotai telech. That there's a road, there's a path, there's a grand strategy, and I am a vital part of that strategy. What I do matters. And if a person feels that what one does matters, so then whatever one does in life is amelim b'Torah. You're always working on Torah because Torah is what matters. And I think that that's true at every age and every station in life. People say, I'm older already. The Torah doesn't accept that. The Gemara says, Avram Zokein Bo Bayomim. Avram Avinu became old. Bo Bayomim. He came with his days. So there are many interpretations of what Bo Bayomim means. But one of the interpretations is that he came with his days. He brought every day that he lived and he showed it to God, so to speak. And he said, look, on this day, this is what I did. I accomplished something. I was nice to somebody. I studied, I wrote, I did. I strengthened my family. So then Hashem Beirach is Avram Bakol. So then that's the blessing of everything. Because that's the self-fulfillment that makes life meaningful. So this is the idea that I think the insight you can share regarding Bechukotai. So even though Bechukotai has the Tochacha in it, there's all sorts of depressing predictions, all of which came true. Nevertheless, we're here to read it. We're here to assess it. Because that's the other side of the coin. Ani Hashem lo shonisi. I, the Lord God, I have not changed. There's nothing new. There's no New Testament. There's no new religion. There's no new. Nothing new. I've not changed. It's the same thing. Ve'atem b'nei Yaakov lo chinisem. And you, the children of Yaakov, you've never been destroyed. You're still here. With all of our baggage, we're still here. So that is the idea, at least the insight that I want to share with you today. And we should all be well, and we should hear good news one from another, and everyone that needs it should have a refuah shlema and strengthen themselves. And I never thought I would, but I pray for Elal every day. And I hope that soon I'll be able to see you face to face, and together we'll continue to build Beit Knesset Anasi to better and greater heights. Thank you all, and have a Shabbat Shalom. Kol Tuv Shalom.
Thank you very much, Rabbi, and we want to give you a bracha back. Also, good health and happiness. It should be a great Shabbos. We miss the rest.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to unmute everyone right now.
Thank you, ETL. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Happy to see you, David Stein.
Dr. David Stein, it's great to see you.
Sure, thank you so much.
Refuah Shalema.
Lovely.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
David. Shalom, David.
David Stein is the one that's standing next door to Alan Harry having.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good Shabbos and good Shabbos to everybody.
And we miss you.
What's my?
We miss you, Rabbi.
We'll see everyone at 5 o'clock tomorrow, Erev Shabbos Chizuk. Looking forward to it. Getting ready for this Parsha of Behar Bechukotai.
Yeah.
PM.
Thank you both, rabbis. Thank
Very
you.
nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rabbi Nachum Amsel, good to see you.
Lana, haven't we? Deborah, or you can't see me, shucks. You have to,
I got in line to say something.
Where?
Marcus.
Who is it?
Hi.
Look at that.
Take care.
Uh-huh.
Good to see you. Take
Studio
care.
shot, you know.
Good, great to see you.
Hi, Deborah. Tina, how are you?
Haven't it
Nice to
disappeared?
see you.
Where's it?
Muted.
I put myself in line.
Hi, Phyllis.
Lawrence and
Lawrence and David Hammer.